Catus, Maximus here. This is comparing an old school DW849 to the newest DWP849X. They had a Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3, I believe, of these before they moved on to this style. There's also a non-X version, so the DWP849 does not have these little vent screens and does not have this plastic boot, and that's really the one I'd recommend versus the few extra bucks for the X version. And the difference of the X version is simply overmolded handle, screens, and boot. But the DWP versions both have 12 amp motors. This is actually just an old school version. Surprisingly enough, it seems the average between about 80 and 100 bucks. People really have a strong attachment to the DW849. So these are truly electronic. This one is actually pretty old. This is 2000, so 24 years old. We do have a bolt for a side handle. Pretty big gearbox, long-lasting gears. And dial variable speed, but it actually does indeed have a magnetic sensor, so just the same as on this one, it really will, or it does have load compensation. Not quite, you know, there is the difference is this is also an 8 amp motor, 12 amp motor here, but this goes up to 3,500 RPM. So really what you're looking at is 18% more speed and like 32% more power out of the newer version. And the ergonomics are better on the new one. Plus, it's a little bit quieter. You know, this also has soft start where the old one didn't. You know, they're both kind of aggressive. They both do this where if you're going slow and then fully accelerate, it kind of gets overexcited for a second. Otherwise, this one's pretty quiet. The gears, they last a pretty long time. These have really proven themselves. But people do have a fondness for the old USA-made ones. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, it has the same kind of behavior where you're going slow. Although the 8 amp motor kind of smooths it out a little bit. Although there is an Achilles heel, they use polycarbonate handles, nylon motor housing, but these handles, they did have some issues, but they were a little bit prone to cracking. I kind of like this variable speeds dial. This one's just fine, but it's just a little bit more exposed. And if you're really using it, and you can accidentally bump that one a bit easier than this one. The dials aren't something that you're going to use very often. You just set it and forget it. Even this old one has a variable speed trigger. The idea is that you'll have it set to a particular speed. You'll go slow just to apply the whatever compound that you put on the pad. And then you go full speed to continue your polishing, or your normal speed, I should say, continue your polishing operation. So anyway, just wanted to make a little video comparing the classic American-made one. I just noticed this, it's missing the trigger lock button. And really just wanted to point out that really the DWP849, the one that doesn't have the screens over the vents, is really probably the best one out of all of them. There are a few videos of the old school DW849 just because these electronic polishers have been popular for decades. The big tool companies have been, you know, turns out that a lot of polishers are used for, polishers and sanders are used for long periods of times, and there are long periods of time, lots of commercial outfits from auto detailing, boat detailing, all sorts of manufacturing operations. So actually a lot of these are sold commercially, they're used heavily, and they just get worn out. So they actually have quite a bit of turnover of these tools over the years. And that's what's keeping all this competition going, surprisingly enough. The other thing, and I'll finish off again, which is what's surprising, is how this old school one, even though it just has an 8 amp motor, still sells for so much money decades after they have been manufactured. which really pushes you to these, because if you're going to spend on eBay a used one that's like in a condition like this, that's $100 or something, might as well get one of these for 140 or 150, and you're going to just have a more modern tool. Even though it is not like isn't American made, it's still pretty nice. Has a wider range of speeds, a bit more power, and you have the option to have the ring handle if you're somebody who likes those, or just use a standard side handle. Plus, another aspect of the new ones is they have kind of more like angle grinders, where they have the the vents that are blowing around through the gearbox, helping keep the gearbox a little bit cooler. Looking around on forums, I mean, there's actually quite a few forum posts about these old school ones. I mean, they have been popular for a long time, and that is one of the deals, is the gearboxes can get pretty hot, because this is more just a standard like drill motor. I mean, in this era, they use a similar type of motor housing on a wide variety of tools. Drills, impact wrenches, grinders, etc. And so it just, I mean, it provides some cooling, but not very much, because it's just exiting through the side vents rather than actually having air actually like travel through the gearbox and acting like a heatsink. But you are much more likely to run into one of these DeWalt or these gray-bodied Black & Decker Professional or Black & Decker Industrial version at garage sales and on, you know, Craigslist and that type of stuff. And it would be just a great polisher. I mean, the real reason they went with the bigger motor on these is because it's become much more common to use like big 10-inch layered cotton discs. Sometimes you put a couple stacks, they're pretty wide, and then you use the edge of them. And those just take a ton of power to drive, and that's really what's prompted the big increase in motors. Using those big 10-inch layered cotton discs really is hard on one of these older 8-amp ones. It just requires a lot of power to drive them. And even though this does okay because it's geared down a little more, it still can get burned up, and I've certainly read about that. When you really push these old ones hard, they tend to run pretty hot, and that's where one of the other advantages of the new one is. Anyway, thanks for watching.